My sister chose our grandfather instead of our father to walk her down the aisle at her wedding after years of being chosen by both parents. I am 35 years old and have two siblings. My sister is 29 and my brother is 23. Our parents are extremely religious and conservative. During our childhood, our parents were very concerned about their image in society. They always wanted a son and were extremely disappointed when I was born, and then my sister being their first child. When they found out I was going to be a girl before I was born, they considered not having me, but because of their religion, they decided to continue with the pregnancies. My grandmother has told me that when I was only 2 years old, my mother sent me to stay with her because she was depressed. Having me close by growing up with my grandparents was incredible. My grandfather patiently taught me to ride a bike. I still remember the excitement of pedaling on my own for the first time. Those days of cycling created a strong bond between us that lasted a long time. My grandmother taught me all about gardening. I learned to take care of plants, watch flowers bloom, and enjoy a little piece of nature. The skills she shared during those gardening days still help me today. Throughout all of this, my parents never came to visit me until I turned 7, and people started questioning why I wasn't living with them. They took me back from my grandparents to live with them. Despite my protests, I would have loved to continue living with my grandparents as they brought stability and warmth to my life. After 3 years, my parents were excited to learn they were expecting another child. However, when they discovered it was going to be another girl, they were disappointed. Again, surprisingly, they were a little more relaxed about it compared to when I was on the way. Fortunately, my sister didn't have to go through what I went through and stayed with our parents. Growing up, the differences in how my parents treated me and my sister were quite noticeable. For example, I was expected to help my mother a lot with housework and responsibilities. I felt like I had an endless list of tasks I had to complete to meet her expectations. However, when it came to my sister, the rules seemed to be a little more relaxed. She didn't have the same level of pressure, and my parents were more lenient with her homework. It was as if they had learned from their previous experiences as parents. If they decided to take a different approach with her. Another example was the way they handled our education. When I was in school, there was immense pressure on me to excel in all subjects. My parents had high expectations, and any deviation from the highest grades was met with disappointment. They enrolled me in various extracurricular activities, putting pressure on her. The atmosphere was significantly more relaxed, although they still cared about her education. The level of intensity wasn't the same. They allowed him to explore his interests at his own pace and didn't impose the same strict rules that I experienced. The most striking difference, however, was in the way they celebrated achievements. When I accomplished something remarkable, it was often met with a feeling of approval or brief acknowledgement. In contrast, when my sister achieved something, the whole family celebrated as if it were a major milestone. These differences created a sense of confusion in me. I couldn't understand why the same parents had such contrasting approaches to raising their children. It wasn't easy growing up in an environment where I felt constantly scrutinized while watching my sister enjoy a more carefree upbringing. However, I made a conscious effort not to harbor resentment towards her, as I recognized that my sister wasn't responsible for the parenting decisions made by our parents. Despite these challenges, I remained committed to supporting my sister and being a positive influence in her life. In fact, we managed to maintain a good relationship and have always remained close. 6 years later, everything changed when my brother was born. My parents organized a massive feast to celebrate the fact that they finally had a son made it clear from the day he was born that he received special treatment. He had stylish clothes, expensive toys, and a super cool room that was much more luxurious than ours. My sister's and mine. Our parents really went all out for him, buying the best baby items like high-end strollers and an expensive crib. It wasn't just about things, our little brother also received a lot more attention. Our parents took tons of pictures and videos of him reaching all his milestones as a baby. But when it came to my sister and me, there was never nearly as much fuss. Even in everyday things, our parents were more involved with him. They never missed a doctor's appointment or a play date. They were always there for him, for me, my sister. Our grandparents played a bigger role in our lives after my sister, Hero, was born. This unequal treatment didn't stop in infancy. It continued as my brother grew up, shaping our family dynamics and causing some challenges along the way. My brother was exempted from many household chores that my sister and I were expected to handle. Our parents often made him do them concessions, exempting us from responsibilities that were an integral part of our daily routine. Birthdays. and special occasions became big celebrations for him with elaborate parties and expensive gifts. As you can imagine, this made us feel excluded all the time. To be fair, I had gotten quite used to his treatment by this point, but this was the first time my sister was experiencing what I had gone through as a child. We started spending a lot of time and holidays at our grandparents' house, spending countless afternoons playing in their backyard or sitting by the fireplace listening to their stories. Our grandparents became our confidants. We shared all our fears, dreams, and the challenges we faced at home. My grandmother always reassured us that we weren't alone. When I was a teenager, my parents labeled me a rebellious daughter because I had different political beliefs from my family. When I tried to explain my views, my mom would cry and tell me I was stressing her out. If I ever expressed sadness or anger in front of her, my mom would get angry and tell me she couldn't stand being around me when I was like that. Then she would ignore me. During the next few hours as my sister grew up, she began to develop and also developed some mental health problems. For years, my mom refused to get her treatment because, according to her, she didn't really need it. However, when my sister had panic attacks or anxiety, my mother would tell my sister that she was a nuisance. There was one night when things got really bad at home. Our parents kept repeating how disappointing my sister and I were, and that we should never have been born. We felt like we were the most, feeling lost and hurt. My sister and I decided to leave home. We packed our things and went straight to our grandparents' house. Our parents found out we were at our grandparents' house and showed up demanding to come home. My grandmother reproached them for treating us this way, and my dad replied that he provided them with food and a roof over their heads. So what more could we possibly want from him? Upon hearing this, my grandfather, who is usually very calm and composed, became very angry, and for the first time yelled at my father that he should be ashamed of treating his own children this way, and threatened to call Child Protective Services if he ever did anything to hurt us. This frightened my parents greatly, as my brother was still young and they feared losing custody of him as well. My grandfather continued to defend us, insisting that we deserved better parents than them. I clearly remember him telling my mother that she was his daughter, but he had never treated her like that. How could she be cruel to me and my sister? My mother's face turned red with shame. That fight at our grandparents' house became a turning point, as it was the first time someone stood up for us, and it made all the difference. After that night at our grandparents' house, things changed a bit at home. Our parents, especially Dad, were a little scared after what Grandpa threatened him, so things softened up a bit. Our brother continued to receive a lot of love, but the constant yelling and punishment for us lessened a little. When I turned 18, I really wanted to go to university, but my parents were totally against it. So we had a massive fight. My mom said that as a woman, I should focus on getting married and having children. She said that boys wouldn't be interested in a woman with too much education. My dad joined in mocking what I would do even with more education. It was a real shock to hear my own parents discourage me from being independent based on my gender. Despite their protests, I went to a 4-year university. I immediately had a scholarship because I was selected for their honors program, and this meant that my parents didn't have to pay anything for me. My parents were very angry with me for disobeying them, but I didn't care. I started working part-time during university and saving money. During this time, I lived on my own. College was a game changer, teaching me the ropes of the adult world and giving me a glimpse of the real world. Balancing studies, a part-time job, and my personal life wasn't always easy, but it certainly made me stronger and more independent. Throughout all of this, my parents rarely called to check on me. I finally graduated and got a full-time job. I had saved enough from my part-time job to move into an apartment with roommates. My conversations with my parents became less and less frequent, almost to the point of being practically non-existent. It wasn't just me distancing myself. They seemed happy with the distance. Even the occasional birthday and holiday passed with little more than a generic greeting. There were times when life hit me hard with work struggles and relationship problems, and my instinct was to turn to family, but I hesitated each time because I knew they wouldn't care. The idea of going back on that emotional roller coaster with my parents was overwhelming. It soon became a conscious choice not to involve them in my life in any way. The only person in my family I maintained consistent contact with was my sister. The time came for her to go to college. My parents threatened to kick her out if she was looking for a higher education under their roof, so I offered to host her. I had to make sure she had the opportunity to pursue her dreams, without our parents holding her back. So my sister moved in with me and started attending a local community college. I worked tirelessly to support us both. It wasn't always easy. but I was determined to support her education and help her achieve her goals. During this time, our bond strengthened, and I found comfort in knowing that despite the difficulties with our parents, I could create a supportive and encouraging environment for my sister to thrive. When our brother grew up, he didn't face the same difficulties as my sister and I. Our parents were proud to send him to college and had even saved enough to create a college fund for him, ensuring he had the financial support he needed to pursue higher education. Our brother clearly had opportunities and privileges that we never had, and I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions, happiness for him and a touch of sadness for the stark contrast in how we were treated. Nevertheless, my sister and I continued to support each other, determined to overcome the challenges we faced growing up. Through all the highs and lows, our grandparents remained a constant source of support for my sister and me throughout all these years. They stayed in touch with us, visiting whenever they could. A few years ago, our beloved grandmother passed away, and my sister and I rushed home to be there for our grandfather. This reunion marked the first time I saw our parents after so long. They acknowledged my presence with a simple nod. Seeing their lack of warmth, I wanted to burst into tears as I already felt vulnerable at that moment, but I didn't want my mother to scold me for making a scene. I remember that after our grandmother's death, my sister and I spent more time with our grandfather. Despite our hectic schedules, we made a conscious effort to be there for him. We visited him regularly, shared meals together, or sat on the porch, deep in conversations that ranged from childhood stories to more recent events. On weekends, we dedicated entire afternoons to helping him. Whether helping with household chores or accompanying him to the local park during one of our shared meals, my grandfather expressed his pride in me for taking care of my younger sister. His words took me by surprise, and I was genuinely touched by his recognition. He went on to say that having a granddaughter like me made him proud, and that he believed I had the potential to change the world someday. Although I understood they were just words, an overwhelming wave of emotions hit me, and tears welled up in my eyes. It had been a long time since someone had sincerely appreciated me. With a gentle tap on my head, my grandfather assured me that my sister was lucky to have an older sister like me. The pride shining in his eyes is an image etched in my memory forever. Our brother, who has been the recipient of preferential treatment from our parents, has always kept his distance, perhaps fearing that our parents would exclude him as they did us over the past few years. My sister and I occasionally speak to him or learn through relatives or cousins about the numerous things our parents have done for him, ignoring our existence, such as spending money on several used cars for my brother over the years. They paid the deposit on a house so my brother could move out and live on his own last year. They paid for my brother to go to New York City with his girlfriend so he could relax, since according to our parents, he was working too much. Recently, my sister, who was dating her college sweetheart, 29-year-old Robert, got engaged. The news filled me with immense joy, and I couldn't be happier for her. She and Robert make a wonderful couple, and the love they share is evident in every smile and glance they exchange. The proposal was nothing short of magical, and my sister was on cloud nine, showing off the beautiful ring adorning her finger to anyone who could spare a moment to share her happiness. She posted pictures of her proposal on social media. That's how our relatives found out, and they called to congratulate her. The news must have eventually reached our parents. Our phones started ringing nonstop with calls and texts from them. Honestly, it was surprising because until now they hadn't shown much interest in what was happening in our lives. It made us wonder why they were suddenly so eager to be part of our happiness when they had kept their distance for so long. The messages brought a mix of feelings: surprise, confusion, and maybe a little annoyance. Why now? Why did they decide to intervene just when we were experiencing a happy moment? Taken by surprise by this unexpected attention, my sister and I exchanged puzzled glances when my sister finally answered Mom's call. Mom expressed how excited she was to hear about the engagement. My sister, being polite, thanked her. Then came the tricky part. Mom started asking all sorts of questions. She wanted to know who this Robert was and if they could meet him now, knowing our parents and their history. My sister tried to avoid it by mentioning her hectic work schedule amidst the chaos of wedding planning. But Dad, probably sitting there with Mom, intervened. He insisted that they deserved to meet the guy she planned to spend the rest of her life with. His persuasive game was strong, and my sister finally gave in. My sister didn't want to face our parents alone, so he told them he would bring me to the meeting too, and surprisingly, our parents agreed. It was a bit unexpected, but we decided to go ahead. The day of the meeting arrived, and we nervously went to our parents' house to meet them. The atmosphere was tense from the start. Our parents greeted us with forced smiles, trying to act as if everything was normal. Mom smiled more warmly at Robert, and we all sat down to talk. It was awkward seeing our parents after so long, especially as they tried to act like a happy family in front of Robert. Although I'm sure Robert knew the whole story, given that he dated my sister during college and has been with her for so long, the tension in the air was palpable, and Robert, sensing the discomfort, tried to keep the conversation light. He shared a little about himself, his job, and his interests, hoping to ease the awkwardness. Our conversation then turned to my sister and Robert's upcoming wedding. This is where things got more interesting. Our parents began subtly hinting at how wonderful it would be if Dad walked my sister down the aisle, and Mom was an integral part of the ceremony as well. My sister and I looked at them in confusion. Dad continued saying how he wanted them to present a united front in front of our relatives to avoid any family embarrassment, and my mother nodded in agreement. She reiterated that they didn't want Robert's family to think that my sister didn't have parents of her own, therefore they wanted to be involved. Upon hearing their words, my sister and I looked at each other. Now it was clear that they had called us here for their own agenda. They were afraid that my sister wouldn't invite them to the wedding, and they didn't want their relatives to question them. That would damage their social standing. I shook my head incredulously, understanding their agenda. My sister thanked them elegantly for their suggestions, but calmly stated that she had already made a decision about who would accompany her to the altar. My dad asked curiously who else she could have chosen for such an important role in her wedding. With a confident smile, my sister dropped the bombshell. Grandpa will accompany her to the altar. Our parents looked surprised, struggling to hide their astonishment. Their expressions quickly changed from anticipation to anger. They couldn't comprehend that their daughter had chosen our grandfather instead of them for such a significant role. So more or less the conversation continued. After that, Mom, but honey, it's tradition for a father to accompany his daughter to the altar. You can break that tradition, sister. Well, Mom, I don't mind breaking traditions. I want Grandpa to be part of this special moment. He's been there for us when they both forgot they had daughters. You can only attend the wedding as guests like any other relative, Dad. You can't just exclude us. We are your parents. Upon hearing this, I could no longer contain my laughter and began to laugh out loud. Everyone was quite surprised by my reaction. I looked my dad straight in the eyes and told him that he and Mom had forgotten how to be parents to us, treating us like garbage all those years. So they had no right to demand that my sister listen to them, the all. Truth hit hard, and our angry and embarrassed parents began to yell at my sister and me. They insisted that we were going to destroy their reputation, but honestly, we didn't care. My sister stood her ground, telling them that they couldn't suddenly claim a parental role. When they had neglected us for so long, I expressed how their actions had consequences and that they couldn't rewrite the past. I clarified that our parents would have a limited role in the wedding, like any other guest. They were welcome to attend, but their participation would be minimal. The meeting ended on a bitter and tense note with my sister standing firm in her decision. As we left, I couldn't help but feel a mixture of admiration for my sisters, courage, and disappointment at our parents' inability to understand the consequences of their past actions. Since the meeting, we have been accused by our parents and other relatives of being selfish and cruel for not allowing our father to walk my sister down the aisle. I have been criticized for telling our parents the truth and for supporting my sister's decision to allow our grandfather to walk her down the aisle. Update. A few hours have passed since I posted the story, and the support has been overwhelming. To everyone asking about our grandfather, my sister has informed him about the engagement, and he congratulated her enthusiastically. He still doesn't know what to make of my sister's idea of asking him to walk her down the aisle. We want to be present when we tell him the news to see his reaction. We plan to visit him this coming weekend. This week, our parents have continued sending us several angry messages. Dad even found a way to contact Robert on Facebook, where he sent him a long message saying that he should talk some sense into my sister as the man in the relationship. He continued writing that my sister had no right to ask her grandfather, when traditionally, it is the father who fulfills that role. Then he threatened Robert, saying that if he allowed my sister to continue with this, then he and Mom would not attend her wedding. Robert responded, "My fiancée is going to do what she wants, and I support her. It's your choice whether or not to attend our wedding." The clarity and firmness of Robert's response probably sent shockwaves through our father, who was probably expecting a more submissive reaction. I can't help but imagine the expression on his face, and it makes me laugh. I will update the situation after meeting our grandfather this weekend. Update 2. My sister and I traveled to our grandfather's house this weekend, brimming with excitement to share the news with him. Finally, my sister told him that she had something important to tell him. He looked at us with his eyes full of curiosity and warmth. My sister took a deep breath and said, "I want you to walk me down the aisle on my big day. You've always been there for us, and I can't imagine anyone else doing it." Our grandfather's eyes filled with tears, and he hugged my sister tightly. His voice broke with emotion as he expressed how honored he was that my sister had asked him this. Seeing my grandfather with tears in his eyes, I couldn't hold back my own, and we shared a group hug. Our grandfather kept thanking my sister, saying how much she meant to him. We assured him it was the least we could do to repay the love and support he had given us over the years. Then we explained how we told our parents the news and how we would handle it. We were worried they might take their anger out on him, but our grandfather laughed and assured us he could handle our mom and that nothing would stop him from walking my sister down the aisle. My sister sighed with relief, and we spent the afternoon helping our grandfather around the house. As the big day approached my sister's wedding day, we are completely immersed in the planning, from choosing the perfect theme that reflects her personality to finalizing her wedding dress and meticulously arranging the seating arrangements. For the guests, I can't wait to see my beautiful sister say I do to the love of her life very soon. Update: 3 months have passed since my last update, and I apologize for the delay. I've been quite busy with my life. The wedding day arrived, and it turned out to be everything my sister had dreamed of, and more. The venue looked stunning, and as we had anticipated, the guests filled the seats, creating an atmosphere of joy and anticipation all around us. However, there was a notable absence at the ceremony: our parents. Given our decision to limit their role in the wedding, they chose not to attend, a decision we respect. It was a bittersweet moment realizing they were absent from such a significant event in my sister's life. The ceremony itself was magical. My sister was radiant in her wedding dress. She stood next to our grandfather. The love and pride in his eyes were palpable as they walked down the aisle together. The decision to have the grandfather in this crucial role was the right one, and the warmth my sister received was evident. The atmosphere was filled with laughter and the shared happiness of everyone present. My sister and Robert exchanged vows, promising a lifetime of love and companionship. The celebration continued throughout the night with dancing, laughter, and heartfelt toasts. Life has moved on for us since the wedding. My sister and I have made the conscious decision to block our parents from contacting us with their negativity and drama. We still visit our grandfather regularly whenever we can. The road hasn't been easy, but as we move forward, the focus remains on building a life filled with positivity and surrounded by those who truly care. This is my latest update.